Okay, Grand Rising, everybody. Tarhaka Monael Bay here. I want to make the announcement that our illustrious brother, Dr. Walter Williams, has passed away. And we've already done a tribute to him. It's up on YouTube and your social networks. Tonight, we have a special presentation. Our special guest will be Brother Yoel. And the broadcast will be about life, advice, and mind-blowing facts. This is going to be a very informative broadcast, so don't miss it. Also, we want you all to subscribe and like this channel, and to make sure you pass this on to everybody you know. Okay, post it on your friends' social networks. But without further ado, let's get on with the presentation. Okay, peace.
Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome, everybody to Morris Talk Live 100. I'm your host, Tarhaka on LB. And today's presentation will be about life, advice, and mind-blowing facts. But before we get down into the podcast, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to our commercials. So if you hold on a minute, let's see what we got. Okay? Now hold on a minute. Let me go down here and find them. I'm trying to find where they at. Okay, here we go.
What is shocking to me among many people today is they are still trying to function in the public financially instead of moving into the private. It stands to reason if you can't pay a debt with a debt, the only thing left is discharge. Move into the private and learn how to function the right way. Stop losing money, time, and effort. I don't see rich people complaining about a debt problem. Go to tarhakadebtelimination.org. Let me show you how to do it. Let me show you how to become a creditor. You don't have to keep going through the same thing over and over. I'm right here, tarhakadebtelimination.org. Let's get out of the public and into the private. Let's become a secured party and a creditor. Okay? Peace. When they send you a letter demanding payment, don't toss it in the garbage. Have some fun. Sharpen your skills. Bring it all into question. When the tow company takes your car or truck away as the repo man, send them the right documents so you can see how fast they bring it back. To learn how to do it right, contact me at tarhakadebtelimination.org. There are many remedies for problems you may face. You don't have to keep being a victim. There's something that you can do if you know how, and that's why I'm here. There are people that are losing sleep because they're getting stuff in the mail about their being evicted from their property when the property is paid for in the beginning. Tarhakadebtelimination.org, man. Holler at me. We would have stopped. Let me make sure I got this one right also. Someone tells you that you must pay them money about your children in the form of child support. They also say they would suspend your driver's license. And they said they would garnish your wages. Who were they talking to? A debtor? Or did they make the mistake and say it to a creditor? When you got married, they said it was a part of that also. Request my free report at tarhakadebtelimination.org. That's tarhakadebtelimination.org. Let's have some fun. Fill out the contact us form for my free report, and I'll rush it straight to your email box. What about this banking stuff? What's going on in the United States? I tell you what, request my free report at tarhakadebtelimination.org. Peace.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, we're back. And what I want to say is, first of all, I have to apologize to you all. This broadcast was supposed to be going on previously, but it didn't. And so now I have to do this now while I got the chance. Now, I don't know why these technical difficulties continues to happen to me, because it seems to me that everybody else on the Blog Talk platform that's talking about absolutely nothing, including religion and politics, never have a problem. But it seems to me that when I come on, well, we got technical problems. You keep telling the truth, and we have a problem with the truth that you're telling, and so we have the choice but to give you technical problems. Okay, let me explain something to you. In this life that we are living, there was and still is and there still will be an ongoing story. What has happened is something was created called his story. His story was attached to an ongoing story. His story is an item, a thing, something that was created, and is a lie. You follow me so far? So far we have an ongoing story, and then there was a thing called and created called history. It was called that, and then created as such, called history, which is a lie. It was attached to an ongoing story. Now, what we have now is we have an ongoing story like a train going down the track, but one of the cars attached to the train is called history, which is a lie. You follow me? Okay. And the reason I had to put it like that is because we have people who actually believe that when you use the word history, when you use that word, most people think that, well, that's the way it always was. No, it wasn't. That is a lie. The item, the block, the compartment, the structure, the car, the thing was a lie when it was created, and it was attached to an ongoing story. That's your problem. As soon as you start listening to something that somebody says, history states this, that, and the other, there's room for a lie. Sooner or later, the lie gonna come. I don't care how much truth you hear in regards to history. Sooner or later, somebody gonna start lying up in there, because that is what it is. It's a lie. Because if you deal with truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth, which is an ongoing story, there's no room for lie. Ain't no room for it. Okay? Now, what I'm going to do is, my illustrious brother, Dr. Walter Williams, he has gone on, and he is the one who told you about history. It was a created item. It was a lie, and it was attached to an ongoing story. Let's take a listen to see what my brother has to say. Hold on.
Going to, and that's the falsification of our history. And I'd like for you to kind of explain to us, how that history that the European wrote is then written out of the Bible that they wrote. And so the places like Mesopotamia and Ur and Sumer and the Hyksos and all of these then are justified on that book, the Bible. And then I want to begin to deconstruct all of that. So can you begin to make that connection so that we will establish Bible literature, which you have already told us is a 19th century, 18th century creation that is somebody else's story. And then they take the Bible and write history with it. So kind of explain how they did that, how that's done, and then let's deconstruct these the different places and events that they ascribed in to the history of Africa, ancient Egypt.
Well, like I said before, Clemson, is this. The Old Testament came out of the religion called Judaism. Judaism is not a BC religion. It's the last of the three major Western religions to come into existence. Okay, you got Christianity, Mohammedanism / Islam, and then Judaism third.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So that religion came about in the late 11th and early 12th century, created by one Rashi, Solomon Bar Isaac called Rashi. I said that you cannot advance Judaism past Rashi.
Correct.
Nor can you advance Judaism past the First Crusade, 1096. You have to understand that the Bible, the Old Testament, came out of the creation of the religion called Judaism.
Mm-hmm.
One has to understand that the New Testament creation came out of the Roman Catholic Church.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And we're talking about in the 16th century by way of Desiderius Erasmus, the homosexual, who wrote the Novum Instrumentum, or the three synoptic gospels. So you have to understand that. And then, as the years progressed, okay, they began to add and embellish both books. I said that both books, the Old and New Testament, was put up on the one cover by one Jacob van Liesveld in 1527. Second person to do it was Martin Luther, 1535. Okay? Then you got to go back into the Renaissance era that I mentioned prior in this viewing here. That during the Renaissance era was a time when the age of new learning came to Europe, because the masses of Europeans were illiterate, couldn't read or write, and at that time a school system was beginning to be set up for the purpose of teaching the Europeans to read and write. So they called it the Renaissance era. And they created schools for that. In the school system that was created during this time, they set in place, as part of their curriculum, history as a subject.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And once they set history in as a subject, they used this subject called history as the foundation, history for the whole entire world, with themselves controlling history. Whoever writes history controls history.
So the Chinese and other people didn't write
They didn't write a history themselves. They had no interest in doing so. In fact, they had no alphabet to write with. Only the ancient Egyptians had an alphabet. They had three forms of writing. I mentioned that prior. So now here you have a school system set up. And in that school system, a curriculum was created. In the curriculum, history as a subject was created by the Europeans, who used the Bible that was in creation at that time as the foundation for world history. You see? That's how the Bible got into the curriculum of the school system to be used as the foundation for world history. And in so doing, they control the writing of that history, or of history. And they wrote us out of history, dehumanized us, and wrote us out of history, detached us away from our ancient Egyptian ancestors. Like I said before, in order for us to find our greatness or claim our greatness, we have to find our way back to ancient Egypt and claim that. No place in the continent of Africa other than ancient Egypt will give us back our greatness. No place. I don't care what country you name in Africa will not give you back our greatness. Only ancient Egypt. Not Egyptian. Don't be confused. I am an ancient Egyptian. I'm a descendant of the ancient Egyptians. They are my ancestors. I'm not an Egyptian, because anybody of any race, creed, or color can be called and identified as an Egyptian. Okay? A European can be an Egyptian. Chinese can be an Egyptian. An Indian of India can be an Egyptian. A Mexican. Anybody of any race, creed, or color can be an Egyptian. But the only someone that can be or claim to be a descendant of the ancient Egyptians, and you have to be African to do that. If you're not an African, you can't claim ancient Egypt. See, so don't ever call yourself, you are a descendant. Clemson Brown, descendant of the ancient Egyptian. Don't call yourself an Egyptian. Because this white man said, well, hey, I'm an Egyptian too. And he's right. But he cannot claim ancient Egypt because he's not an African. See? So by him controlling the subject called history, he can write it any way that he sees fit to write it. But he used the Bible as the foundation for world history. And what I do with the Bible is discard the Bible to the nearest garbage can, because it is historically worthless.
Now let's begin to look at that history that he created and see if we can deconstruct it. If we go back to, he moved civilization, the beginning to civilization, into the area of the Mesopotamian. He talks about Ur and Sumer and the Indus Valley along as being contemporaries with Egypt. How do we look at that? Is that accurate or inaccurate?
So far as Sumer or the Sumerians, that's inaccurate. So far as Mesopotamia, that's strictly biblical literature or based on biblical literature. That's in the Bible. You only find Mesopotamia inside the Bible. The only place that you find the Sumerians is in the Bible under two names, Akkad and Shinar. That's where you find the reference of Sumerian in the Bible. Okay, under those two names. So therefore, there's never been a Sumer or Sumerian. Okay, that is strictly biblical literature. There's never been a Mesopotamia, whom they are saying that Mesopotamia is where Iraq is today. Historically incorrect. That's all Bible. You can't use anything in the Bible to sustain the stories that's written in the Bible. You can't use the Bible to sustain any history. Okay? Then, let's get back to the Sumerians. In as late as 1915, the European community denied the existence of a Sumerian ever existing in world history. Let me bring one of those scholars, those European scholars in by name. That was Joseph Halevi. Okay? Joseph Halevi was a French historian coming out of France. He denied and fought against the existence of a Sumerian ever existing. So you have that polemic of denouncing the Sumerian.
All right, we're back. Isn't there something? Think about that for a minute. That's the same thing that I told you earlier about the item, let's say the box of rock or something that don't belong and attached to an ongoing story. Now, if you look at it this way, we got an ongoing story. The story is, the real story is, everybody on the planet look like me. We were what's commonly referred to as black people. Outside of that, there is nothing. Okay, now here comes something that was created and put here, in an attempt, after they put here, in an attempt to graft themselves onto an ongoing story and begin to dictate this item of rock called history, which is a lie. Okay? I'm doing the best I can trying to explain it to you. We're going to deal with what is the best advice we can get about life. When can religion and science exist together? What do we know about death and near-death? We're going to get to these things. But let me go on now here, and I want you to look at something before I come back to my illustrious brother, Dr. Walter Williams. I'm trying to make sure all this thing ties together in your mind. Hold on.
Tamari as America is an ancient, sophisticated black civilization, often attributed to Egypt, actually have originated in the Americas. America was a hub of early black civilizations, hosting advanced black societies with complex architecture, mounds, pyramids, and spiritual traditions, long before these structures appeared elsewhere. Tamari, meaning the beloved land, resonates as a title for America, seen as the source of abundant resources, ancient wisdom, and knowledge systems. This interpretation suggests that America's indigenous and ancient black civilizations held the same level of influence and sophistication often credited solely to ancient America. This name reflects the reverence ancient Sumerians held for their land, viewing it as a sacred place rich in resources, spiritual significance, and historical lineage. The term Ta means land, and Mary or Marai translates to beloved, highlighting the profound connection between the people and their homeland. Tamari represents not just America's physical land, but also its legacy of advanced knowledge, architecture, and spirituality that influenced civilizations far beyond its borders. Today, many people continue to honor the name Tamari as a reminder of the enduring cultural and spiritual significance of ancient America's civilization. Tamari, aka America, is older than Africa and Egypt. The use of Tamari for America is untold history, reconnecting with ancestral land and honoring an ancient civilization's presence and contributions within the Americas. America is seen not only as the new world of recent centuries, but as an ancient and revered center of civilization. The oldest pyramids and mounds are found in America. Over 900,000 mounds and pyramids have been destroyed and dug up.
I know thy works, and tribulation, and poverty, but thou art rich. Welcome to the Black Excellence and Abundance Channel.
Black Native Americans have been all but ignored in this country. We have been written out of the history books, and it is as if we never existed in the first place. The truth is, this country was filled with many all-black, so-called Indian, Native American tribes. This country was filled with so-called black Indians, true Native Americans. One area of note is California. The true history of California blacks is a powerful story, one that should be studied and remembered. I urge you to please do your research, and you will be surprised by the majestic history of our people here in this country.
They were California blacks, or Califians, also referred to as Califians, spelt with a KH. The California blacks were one of the largest and oldest native nations in the Americas. They were the people Europeans originally referred to as the red man.
One account of what it was really like in California comes from the writing of historian Robert Beverly from the 1700s. He writes, "Far and away the most beautiful city on earth, 5 times the size of London or Rome, great towers and buildings rising from the water, 60,000 gleaming houses, how spacious and well built they were, of beautiful stonework and cedar wood and wood of other sweet scented trees. Many streets and boulevards were so neat and well swept despite the multitude of inhabitants, crisscrossed with a complete network of channels like an enormous Venice, but also remarkable floating gardens that remain from nowhere else on earth." So you see, black Native Americans not only lived here, but we thrived here. And we thrived for thousands of years before Columbus. As a matter of fact, blacks were in this country even before the birth of the Savior, before Jesus Christ, Yeshua HaMashiach.
California Native American identity. The original indigenous inhabitants of California were the descendants of West Africa, South America's Olmeca Zai Empire, 1500 to 400 BCE, Egypt, Asia, and the Pacific Islands, creating a mixed cultural nation that thrived for thousands of years in peace.
The following is what an exhibition of European explorers actually found upon their arrival in North America. There were huge aqueducts transported America's water from fresh springs. But what impressed most were special merchant areas filled with timber and tile and other building materials being bought and sold. There were green grocers, streets where everyone could buy every sort of vegetable, fruit, honey, and chocolate. Astonished by personal cleanliness and hygiene of the colorfully dressed people.
All right. There you have it. All right. Well, what I've been trying to tell you is what was just described to you is an ongoing story. And then someone comes along and attach a thing called history. It was created, attached to an ongoing story, which is your story. Anytime you hear somebody say, well, history says that they about to be lying, a lot of them don't even know they lying. They just regurgitating something that they think they are supposed to say because they think it is a part of an ongoing story. No, it is an attachment. See, you can have a grapefruit tree growing and cut a limb off a tangerine tree and graft it onto a grapefruit tree, and then you get a different type of fruit. But you think, when you eat fruit, oh, this tastes good. But what you have broken is the molecular structure of the original fruit. You have in your possession something that may taste good, but it is a lie. Do you see where I'm going with this? You see what I'm talking about? Think about it. Just think about it for a minute. Now, see, we have an ancient story. We didn't need nothing artificial. We didn't need no attachments. We have the ancient Egyptians in North Africa, but I told you civilization began in Americas along with what was happening in Africa, in Asia, and all over the world. There was no such thing as there was Adam and Eve, and all the people on the earth came into existence as a result of Adam and Eve. That is a lie. I mean, we have done this over and over and over and over again for you to get this stuff right. When it comes to the beginning of civilization, it happened all over the planet, everywhere. It just so happened that all of it and all of them look like me. It's just around. That's where the problem's coming in at, because what we have is a creation of something and someone who's attempting to attach themselves to an ongoing story and lead you to believe that it's normal. It is not normal. It is not normal. It is an attachment to an ongoing story. The train already moving down the track. You can't run and jump on the train and sit somewhere and lead the conductor to believe that you've been on the train all the time. No, you came from somewhere else. You jumped onto an existing story, and then you attempted to change to the narrative of the story to make it appear as if that is the way that the world...
Colonizers don't just take land. They take our language, they take our culture, they take our identity. The words you use, the words you hear, regulate your thinking. And that's what they were after, regulating your thinking, changing your thoughts, changing your mentality, and the way that you articulate the world to yourself. This is not just about words, it's about thoughts, it's about thinking.
This video is for black people, and I'm 1,000% serious. I need answers to this question. Can I please have the list of things that you didn't invent? Because I found out you invented country, heavy metal, rock, gospel, opera, rap. You invented America. You built America. You invented everything, you know. You invented electricity. You invented everything. I mean, I'm at to the point where I'm thinking, did you guys invent air and water? Were black people actually the first people to space? I just need this list so I can find out what I can actually use without having to ask your permission.
This is a white woman, Virginia Steen McIntyre. Dr. McIntyre is a geologist. She found evidence of humans in Mexico, Huatlico. This is the site. This is Mexico. Now remember I said if you find evidence of humans in North America or South America before 20,000 years, it starts throwing darts, all right, at evolution. So check it out. Dr. McIntyre dated the site using 4 types of dating, all right, 4 different types to 250,000 years ago. They found evidence of hunting, evidence of tools, evidence of things that only modern humans could make, all right? Animal bones with butchering marks, and these animal bones were on camels.
250,000 years.
Look at the type of dating she used. Uranium Sirius dating, all right? And this was on a camel bone. Now, ask yourself a question. The camel that you find in North Africa, Middle East, East Africa, don't you know that the camel originated in the Americas, the oldest camels? How did these animals get across a whole sea? Who brought them? You see what I'm saying? These are old animals. The falcon that you find as a zoomorphic form in Egypt. The falcon, the oldest falcon fossils are in Utah. How do you get that? But look, she got fired. She got fired for doing this. Look at her, get her name. You can look her up. She's online telling you how she got fired. Because she wouldn't take the dates and put them within the evolution period. She's like, I'm not doing it. This is a professional geologist. I'm not a professional geologist. Unc's not a professional geologist. She had to go to school. She had to go learn how to do these half-life dating systems. She had to go into higher mathematics to do all this stuff. She brought the report back. She was happy. Like, damn, this is a great find. Look at what we got. Look at what we got. Those white folks like, no, we don't.
When we first began to work on the Hueyatlaco site, we thought we had an old site. This was back in '66, and we thought it was perhaps 20,000 years old, and at that time that was considered a very old age for the site. We did what they call radiometric dates, which gives an actual date range, and we used two different methods to do that. One was using uranium atoms, another one was using little zircon crystals. When we finally got the dates and all the different methods we used to date it, it came out to be 250,000 years old. To tell you the truth, I would have been happy with a 20,000-year-old date. It would have made my career. It was very old for the time, but it wasn't so old that it was that controversial. People can take 20,000-year steps. They can't take steps that are over 200,000 years at one time. And I was rather naive. I thought, okay, we've got something big here, but I'm just going to stick with the date. We've got the information. We got the facts. Let's get the facts out and go on from there. And I didn't realize it was going to ruin my whole career.
According to Dr. McIntyre, because she stuck to the facts, all of her professional opportunities were closed off. She's not worked in her chosen field since. The site was closed and permission for further investigation was denied forever.
That's the primary report. It never made it to the secondary literature. They got to cover that up because that represents the original man all over the planet. You see what I'm saying? She got all these dating methods. She even dated the volcanic ash, all right? And then she summarized the find and said that using the 4 radiometric dating methods, she dated the site to 250,000 years ago. The primary data never made it to textbooks. She don't have a textbook out with the primary data. She had to go online and use YouTube and use people who was interested in her story to try to get it out because she got ostracized. That's what I call white science. White science even attacks white scientists who try to tell the truth. So you got one white scientist trying to tell the truth. You got other white scientists like, oh, she don't even know how the game get played. She don't even know. She's so enthused. Let's make her have a seat. She need to have a seat because we need to, what? Keep people believing in this. So what I'm trying to say is, this is what white people did to us. They made us fight against each other based on continents. You know that? So now, it's Africa versus America. They named that. We never named no Africa or no America. It was the earth and black people. That's it. So now we creating these little turf wars, and it's their classifications that's making us fight each other. Everywhere you see black people on the planet, that's your brother and your sister.
So are you saying that America is older than Africa?
No. I'm saying America and Africa are fake. I'm saying that the earth is the earth. Period. That's it. That's what I'm saying.
I agree with you.
Right. And so now, names wasn't even in existence. Planets and, continents then shifted and changed over time. And we've been on all of them. So we don't, listen, here's the reality. We don't know where the first humans walked around if it was on one continent. We just know we're here. Now, we can go into some stuff and start theorizing, you know what I mean? Because we looking. So white folks throw us this curveball. They don't want you to claim the earth. They want you to set trip on each other. You African and you American. Or you African American and you African. And you this and you that. And you that. We're going to tell you who we are. We know who you are. We got that part. So once we got that part, we good. We don't need to argue about nothing else. You know how many textbooks they got with this bullshit in it? If somebody come out with fines, they got to burn all them textbooks. They got to put all that away. They got to update all the information. They got to tell your children the truth. They don't want to do that. They is about control. Now they controlling black power people. Like, what happened? What happened? Oh, he got science now and he can teach the God? Of course we can share information, but I think our shit is much better. I think
smiling face. And darling, there's no denying that once you love, you get love in return. So baby, I guess you know it. The time for fun and games today is through. 'Cause lady, I'm gonna tell you exactly what it is I'll do for you. 'Cause I'll make it good. I'll make it good for you. I'll make it good for you. I'll make it good for you. Anywhere you want me to. I'll make it good for you. I'll make it good for you. I'll make it good for you. Anywhere you want me to. Girl, I know you feel it. When love get love, you get love in return. Your body is talking to me, and the way you walk is making me insane. So let's stop wasting time. I want you to be mine, to be together for the rest of our lives. My love is a yearning, it's getting stronger and stronger. And this is why I say I'll make it good. I'll make it good for you. I'll make it good for you. I'll make it good for you. Anywhere you want me. I'll make it good. I'll make it good for you. I'll make it good. I'll make it good. I'll make it good for you. Anywhere you want me to. I'll make it good for you. I'll make it good for you. I'll make it good for you. Anywhere you want me to. I'll make it good. I'll make it good. I'll make it good for you. I'll make it good for you. Anywhere you want me to.
As far as love, sweetheart, I'll make it good to you. So special, I move from the hood with you. Worship the ground you walk on, queen black sister. No abuse, I don't smack them, I relax them. My own mother gave me the word of approval. She said, son, this the one, she what you call beautiful, intelligent, with the body better than Pam Grier. I'm not jealous, it's a compliment the way that man stare at your exotic walk. I promise you, I want your heart at least 6 months before you give me private parts. Don't think I'm a hit and run, I'm trying to get funds together. So me and you could be one forever. Now we like building, talking how we like children. Your family show me love, they understand my feelings. Guaranteed you're gonna marry me, white dress, nice neck, cover your face, looking suitable. The love is mutual. Coleman family, hootie hoo, at the reception. It's over now, honeymoon time, no protection. The whole industry loved the way Bacardi carry flows with my uncles, the best, Colorani, Larry, and Joe.
Wasting time. I want you to be mine, to be together for the rest of our lives. My love is a yearning, it's getting stronger and stronger. And this is why I say I'll make it good. I'll make it good. I'll make it good. I'll make it good for you. I'll make it good for you. Anywhere you want. 'Cause I'll make it good. I'll make it good. 'Cause I'll make it good. I'll make it good for you. I'll make it good for you. Anywhere you want. I'll make it good. I'll make it good. 'Cause I'll make it good. I'll make it good. I'll make it good. I'll make it good. Yeah. Anywhere you want me to. I'll make you know I'll make it good. I'll make you know I'll make it good. I'll make you know I'll make it good. Anywhere you want me to. I'll make you know I'll make it good. I'll make you know I'll make it good. I'll make you know I'll make it good. Anywhere you want me to. I'll make it good. I'll make you good. I'll make you know I'll make it good. I'll make you know I'll make it good. Anywhere you want me to. I'll make it good. 'Cause I'll make it good. I'll make it good.
The exploration of Africa by Europeans, all they could see is that everybody had the same skin color. So when they divided up the world by races, they just say black African, and that became a bin into which they put every person they ever found in Africa, because they saw skin color. They weren't seeing anything else, though. Other elements of genetic diversity, of genetic expression. If all you see is skin color, you'll miss things like height, or intelligence, or motivation. Other things that could be encoded within a person, within a group. So now watch. All evidence shows that life began in Africa, and later left Africa to go into Europe and across Asia, the land bridge into North America and South America. It all began in Africa. You would expect the greatest genetic diversity of the human species to be expressed in Africa. That's what you'd expect, because it all began there. Okay? So what do I mean by genetic diversity? Is it skin color? Because that's what everyone thinks about when they... No, forget skin color. Forget it. I'm talking about other features you can measure about people. So, if you have the greatest genetic diversity, where would you find the tallest person in the world? It'd be in Africa. You got the Watusi. Where would you find the shortest person in the world? It would be in Africa. You got the Pygmies. Where would you find the fastest person in the world? You find him in Africa. We're getting him off the west coast of Africa.
Yeah.
Where would you find the fastest at long distance with stamina? You find it in Africa. It's a different part of Africa.
Yeah.
You get that from Kenya, which is on the east coast.
Yeah.
You get the sprinters on the west coast. Okay? If you wanted to find the slowest person in the world, it would be in Africa, but there's no contest for that. Okay? If you wanted to find the dumbest person in the world, however you want to measure it, it'd be in Africa.
So the most intelligent
The
person
most intelligent person
in the world
would be in Africa. And in fact, there is a project called the Africa Einstein Project. And they're looking for the next Einstein in Africa. Because that's where you're going to find the smartest person there ever was in the world. But historically, Europeans are not thinking that Africa is going to have smart people, because that's not how they were represented ever.
Yeah.
Okay? This was written about, Stephen Gould wrote about this book, The Mismeasure of Man. There's a shelf in the British Museum that has a brain in a jar. It's the brain of a famous psychologist, anthropologist, Broca. Okay? And next to it, on another shelf, are the genitals of a black male African in a jar. Well, that kind of says it all. Did you save the brain of the African? No, you saved his genitals. Did you save the genitals of Broca? No, you saved his brain.
Wait, don't go!
As an African, on one hand, you may be happy that our continent is having the smartest people in the world, the tallest people in the world, the fastest people in the world. Yeah, probably the most beautiful people in the world. But on the other hand, we are having the shortest people, the dumbest people, the ugliest people. This is a big problem for Africa, and if you give me a moment, I'm going to explain.
No? Okay, I'm listening.
You see, human minds naturally pay attention to the negative, while we oftentimes ignore the positive. Psychologists call this negativity bias. So, because of negativity bias, if you have any environment, in this case, a continent, where you are having extreme of positivity and extreme of negativity, what happens is humans, we naturally see more of the negative, and most of the times they will not see the positive at all. I'm going to talk more on this later in the video. For now, let me try and show you practically how negativity bias affects human mind. Look at this lady.
She's beautiful.
Oh yeah.
She's beautiful.
Yeah. Let's pretend that you are this lady and you dressed up in the morning. Immediately you step out of your house. Somebody look at you and said, "Wow, your hair is beautiful." Now, naturally you will say, "Oh, thank you." But you are happy about that compliment, right? Okay. But 3 hours later, another person look at you and say, "Oh, where did you make this hair from? It is horrible." Now, you have received one compliment about your hairstyle and one negative comment about your hairstyle. Once you assume that the negative and positive should cancel each other, unfortunately, when you are about to sleep at night, you are very much unlikely to remember the positive comment, but you will remember the negative comment, because your brain as human tends to exaggerate the negative, while most of the time it just ignores the positive. let me give you another example. Let's say you grab your phone and you write some post on Facebook, Twitter, or whichever platform you use, and 30 minutes later you discover that 5 people had commented on your post. But while reading through the comments of the people, you discover that 4 of those comments are positive. They are telling you how great your post is, how good it is, and good things like that. But then you saw these negative comments. What do you think will happen to you immediately? Well, what happened is your mind automatically forgets the positive comments and concentrates on the negative comments. And in fact, I will not be surprised if in the next 3 weeks you are still remembering that person who dropped a negative comment on your Facebook post. But remember, you actually received 4 positive comments. Why can't you remember those? The reason is because, again, human mind naturally exaggerates the negatives while we ignore the positive. Okay, now, let's go back to talk about Africa. Don't forget, we are talking about the fact that Africa is having genetic diversity, which means you have in the same environment the smartest people, at the same time the dumbest people. You are having the tallest people, at the same time the shortest people. Probably you are having the most beautiful people, at the same time you are having the ugliest people. Unfortunately, when you have such environment, what happens is everybody here from the rest of the world tend to forget all those positives. Why they see the negatives as being the only thing that exists in that environment. Just as 3 days after somebody dropped a negative comment on your Facebook post, you are still remembering that negative comment. Even though there are 5 positive comments, you are forgetting they exist. In their 2001 study published in Sage Journal, Professor of Psychology Paul Rosen and Dr. Edward Roseman call the phenomenon I just described to you now negativity dominance. And the idea is negative and positive, even if they are at the same measure, negative always dominates positive in the mind of humans. So the implication of that for Africa is that everybody from the rest of the world will naturally not see the positive side of Africa. They will naturally see the negatives, and because they tend to see the negatives alone, they would think we are not capable of any exceptional mental capacity.
People want to say the aliens built the pyramids, and I'm saying, no, Africans built the pyramids. And you're European, come to Africa, and it's some technology, some architecture that's beyond your capacity, and you're going to say aliens did it because you will not credit Africa for having that kind of ability?
I see you.
What's wrong with you?
Okay, I see that.
And sometimes, when they want to credit us for anything, they can naturally or easily see that we are stronger because we are Usain Bolt of this world, or we are Muhammad Ali of this world, or they ridiculously think we have bigger genitals.
This was written about, Stephen Gould wrote about this in his book, The Mismeasure of Man. There's a shelf in the British Museum that has a brain in a jar. It's the brain of a famous psychologist, anthropologist, Broca, okay? And next to it, on another shelf, are the genitals of a black male African in a jar.
Wow.
Well, that kind of says it all. Did you save the brain of the African? No, you saved his genitals. Did you save the genitals of Broca? No, you saved his brain. So the inherent bias that shaped how this world now sees itself is tragic.
Now you might want to think, oh, everybody else in the world who think everything that exists in Africa is negative are bad people. Well, that would not have made our case terrible. What makes our case even worse is that because of the negativity dominance, even Africans, me and you, are very much likely to be tempted to assume that the only thing that exists in Africa is negative. And you can confirm what I'm talking about just by having conversations with an average 25 years old African. I mean, if you gather 10 Africans, 9 of them are just negative about Africa. In fact, I have never read a study about this, but I am assuming that the biggest dream of 90% of African young people is to get out of Africa. Why do you think that's the case? Well, only reason why the biggest dream of most Africans is to get out of their countries and their continents is because these people think everything that exists in their country is negative. And again, this is as a result of negativity dominance. In June of 2008, to be specific, on June 30, 2008, I wrote my final exam in a polytechnic where I was doing my diploma. And exam, I announced to my parents that I was not ready to further my education. I wasn't ready to go to university as they had planned. Instead, I wanted to go and figure out how to build my own company. If you're an African, you probably know what will happen next. My father...
Okay, now we're back. Okay, now, what is amazing to me is, okay, we have schools and colleges and universities across the United States educating people, which is contained in the same box that I told you about earlier called history. Okay, now, prior to the box being created at a certain date and time and attached to an ongoing story, you already had knowledge and wisdom, peace, tranquility, righteousness. We didn't need there was no such thing as a point in time in our ancient story where we need to set your clock back or set your clock forward to regulate time. We didn't need all of that. Now, what is amazing to me is we have the educational system, and you believe now, pay attention to the word, believe that you're supposed to go through a certain amount of years to become educated. But what you have not realized is the more education that you get, it takes you further and further and further away from the truth about your ongoing story. You are, if you didn't need to set your clock back an hour, this is just what they're coming out with right now. Set your clock back an hour so you could be regulated and toward time. No. That is something that belongs to someone else. It doesn't have anything to do with someone that looks like me. It belongs to his story. He is the one that feels like he needs to be regulated about this, that, and the third. Okay? I want you to just think about it for a minute. Okay, hold on a minute. I'm going to bring my illustrious brother in here, Dr. Walter Williams, because I'm trying to get past the plug, because I didn't get a chance to run it all on his tribute, so we're doing it right now. Hold on a minute.
So you have that polemic of denouncing the Sumerians coming from the European scholar community. Now, right after 1915, what the Europeans did was that they began to create artifacts, pseudo-artifacts, to try to justify an existence of a Sumerian living in Mesopotamia.
You say pseudo-artifacts?
Yes.
I just want you to clarify that.
Pseudo means false artifacts. Okay? That they created in their workshops and in their artisan studios to create something that will try to give a true validity for the creation or the existence of a Sumerian ever existing on earth. You see, they're saying that the Sumerian came up, the Sumerian history and civilization came up at the same time as the ancient Egyptian civilization came into existence. See? And they tell you that they cannot connect the Sumerians to any known language group. They tell you on one hand that they can, then on the other hand they tell you that we can't do it. Okay? And then they say the only thing that we can identify Sumerians is the art that they left. And when you look at the art that the supposed Sumerians left of themselves, is nothing but of Europeans with keen features and long nose. Okay? This is something that the Europeans created for themselves. You see? And then they're going to say that Sumerians left and created what is known as the cuneiform writings. Cuneiform writings are created by the Europeans to also go along with this false idea that they wanted to put on the world that the Sumerians existed on Earth. You see? So you really have to understand and study ancient history and really go in and really look at what these Europeans are telling you by way of their literature. Okay? And then when you look at the cuneiform writings, the cuneiform is attached to biblical names. They said that the Akkadians wrote using the cuneiform. You see? They said that the Hittites wrote using the cuneiform. You see? They said that the Babylonians wrote using the cuneiform. They even took and put Akhenaten's name in there. Said that Akhenaten wrote the monoletters in cuneiform, etc., etc. Tried to validate the existence of a Sumerian. You see, they use all kinds of tricks, but don't allow them to fool you on creating something that's based off of mythology to try to equal themselves with the ancient Egyptians. There's no prior civilization coming from no place on earth that can predate or be greater than the ancient Egyptians. The greatest people that has ever existed on planet Earth. And you see this smile on my face? I'm smiling because I am a descendant of the world's greatest people that has ever existed on earth. And when you look at me, you're looking at an individual who has divested himself of all religion. I have a free spirituality that's in place at this time, that's connected to my ancestors, my wonderful, beautiful ancestors known in history as the ancient Egyptians. So, no, don't allow anybody to take any credit away from our ancient Egyptian ancestors. And another thing they have done, they have taken Northeast Africa and made it the land of the Bible. See? Northeast Africa consists of Palestine, Lebanon, Jerusalem, Turkey, Jordan, Syria, Iraq, Iran, Saudi Arabia, Yemen, all that land area is part of the continent of Africa, called Northeast Africa. In 1859, they created and dug a canal. Took them 10 years, 1859 to 1869, to create what is known as the Suez Canal, trying to divide that land area away from the continent of Africa. Can't do it. So what they did was that they used that section of Africa over there as part of the land of the Bible. Okay? What they wanted to do, Clemson, is to try to get as close to Egypt as possible. Because Egypt, when you realize the two entities, meaning that Egypt and religion, Egypt is the only two that has a true history, a physical history, something that you can go and see and touch, something that you don't have to dig in the ground to try to find out whether the ancient Egyptians existed on planet Earth. It's there. The Great Pyramid is there. The greatest edifice that has ever been built on planet Earth. The Sphinx is there. All your monuments that wasn't stolen out of ancient Egypt by the Europeans are still there. Okay? On the other hand, Egypt versus religion, religion has to have literature to sustain itself. Egypt don't have to have no literature to sustain itself. You can see, feel, and smell the creation of the civilization that was created during the time of antiquity by our ancestors, the ancient Egyptians. Religion, you have to read about it and believe it in written literature. That's what they are doing and have done to us as a people. That's the reason why we are so confused as a people. We're going to have to find our way back to ancient Egypt. We're going to have to divest ourselves in all religion. We're going to have to take the religion of Christianity and this image that we know today as Jesus Christ and throw it in the nearest garbage can that you can find. You're going to have to take Islam alaikum and alaikum salam and the Quran and the Prophet Muhammad, all of that garbage, and throw it in the garbage can to clear your mind of all this confusion. You're going to have to take this black Hebrew Israelitism. You're going to have to go somewhere and get yourself a blood transfusion and run all this black Hebrew Israelite, this Hebrew blood out of your system that you think existed during the time of Abraham. Never been an Abraham. So divest yourself of all of that. Okay? Get yourself a spiritual enema. Clean your system out. Get back into your own indwelling spiritual power that your Creator gave you at the time of your birth. It's inside of you. Don't come outside and bring that power, that spiritual power that the Creator gave you that's connected to the whole entire universe by way of your pineal gland. Don't bring that spiritual power and invest it into a dead, man-made religion. And you take this God that you have been believing in a God, and this God that has been put upon you. Take this God and throw it in the nearest garbage can that you can find, along with the rest of this religious garbage.
Now, let me ask you, are you saying that there were no people in that area of what they call Sumer or Mesopotamia, because there are monuments that, the zygotes and things like that? Talk to me about that.
Only people living in that area was Africans. That's Northeast Africa. The artifacts that they tell you that they found over there, they created those artifacts. Mm-hmm. Like I told you before, the European scholar academic community argued against any existence of a Sumerian.
But you're saying there were people.
Africans, yes. They had nothing to do with what they're talking about today in the Bible or in so-called pseudo-history that the Europeans created. Has nothing to do with that.
Then what was the interrelationship of those Africans in that area, Mesopotamia, Persia? Maybe you should talk about Persia. What about the Persians?
Never been a Persian. Persian is strictly biblical literature.
Babylon?
It's all biblical literature.
Then explain that area. Who was there and what was the
African.
relationship? What was the relationship with Egypt?
They were all connected by way of them being African. Any African throughout the continent of Africa, or any African today, 1999, can claim to be an ancient Egyptian. All you have to do, the qualification for that is to be an African. Okay?
So are you saying there was a sharing of culture and of language and of general information?
No. I'm saying that you go throughout the continent of Africa, you have, wherever the geographical land area where the Africans live, they have their own culture and civilization and language. Okay? The ancient Egyptians had his unique culture, language, and civilization. The ancient Egyptians, the people that we know in history of the ancient Egyptians, were the ones that the
Okay, we're back. Now, I want you to think about this for a minute. Okay, let's say if we go to the continent of Africa and we run across a tribe out there, those people, let's say they walk across the ground, they barefooted, they don't have no suit, no tie, none of that that we consider, because we got this out the box now, the word civilization. And so if it doesn't appear that they have this, that, and the other, and look like us, then we have to classify them as uncivilized. However, we will discover that they live 500, maybe more than that, 5 times better than we do. But we call ourselves civilized. Isn't that amazing? Hold on a minute.
In their coffins, with their writings and their treasures and everything that are there, it is a testament that they did live and die at some point, and they have correlated most of the kings that they found in the Valley of the Kings with the chronology that Manetho was supposed to have given. They found the tombs to validate that.
The tombs are there, but you cannot use Manetho for anything but an incarnated name created by the Europeans to write through. Okay? The tombs are there. That has nothing to do with the actuality or the reality of the tombs being there and the ancient Egyptians being there. The ancient Egyptians did not write a chronology of themselves. If so, it was done in pictorial form, and those pictures are called meta-nature hieroglyphics that never been deciphered. And see, you have to understand that the ancient Egyptians never wrote a history of themselves. That's very, very clean, very clear.
Okay, then let's talk about, because we've dealt with that whole period now, the falsification, the creation of a history, where we can see now how one can put themselves in history. But let's begin to look at the Europeans themselves and talk about it. Perhaps you could explain, when does the European impact the ancient Egyptians? I mean, we talk about the Mayans. I'm looking at this book, and they talk about the Mayans, and they take Greece back to the year 2000, and they give a chronology of Greece, beginning with the Mayans and bringing all the way up to this great and marvelous civilization that they built.
What they call the Minoan civilization. Suppose it started on the island that's called Crete today.
Correct.
Okay? The ancient Egyptians lived on that island, because that's right in the Mediterranean, so many miles from Egypt. Okay? The ancient Egyptians lived in Greece and brought a high civilization in Greece before the Greeks came into Greece. See, the Greeks that are known today, or the people that are known today as the Greeks, came out of Bulgaria, Yugoslavia, Albania, Hungary, etc., into Greece at a certain time. But prior to that, the ancient Egyptians created a high civilization over there. They call that civilization the Mycenaean civilization. The Greeks and the Romans are one and the same. The Roman Greeks migrated into the country that's known as Italy, but the ancient Egyptians created a high civilization prior to these Roman Greeks getting over there, and they are calling that civilization the Etruscan civilization. These are names that are used to camouflage the true identity and the true glory and the true history of the ancient Egyptians. Etruscans, Mycenaeans, Minoans, etc., etc. Okay? With these names, they can attach all kinds of stories to it and write up certain things in books to take you away from the ancient Egyptian or the glorification of the ancient Egyptian. You mentioned about the Greeks in 200 BC having a form of civilization. That's not true, simply because you cannot have a civilization coming from anybody who does not have a writing system. The Greeks never had a form of writing. They never had an alphabet. So during the time of antiquity, there's never been an institution that ever came out of Greece. If one argued against that, then you name me what institution that came out of Greece during the time of antiquity. The ancient Egyptians were invaded by the Greeks under Alexander the Greek in 332 BCE. That was the first time in world history that a European ever came in contact with the ancient Egyptians in Egypt, in Africa. And that's where all of it began from that point, coming up to 1999.
Were the Persians Europeans?
Never been a Persians to be a European.
So you're saying that whole thing about the Persians is a lie?
Yes, sir.
All right. Let's
see what they're trying to do is to, like I told you before, all history is written to establish and sustain a Jew in biblical literature in human form. That's how they write it up. Okay? Now, they create a Persian out of a Cyrus II the Great, okay, who was supposed to be a Persian king who rescued the Jews out of Babylon in 587 and took them back and sent them back into Judea to build their second temple. This is all biblical. It said Nebuchadnezzar took the Jews out of Judea and put them into slavery into Babylon. And Cyrus II the Great came along, who was a Persian king, came along and freed them from this bondage in 587. You see that? So now they need a Persian of any kind to try to sustain this pseudo story of this lie that is told about Jews and this concocted history that they have created. So there's never been any Persians. See, if you go to a book or go to the encyclopedia, Judaica, it's your nearest library, and you look up the Great Synagogue in there. In the literature that's called the Great Synagogue, you know what they tell you in that literature? They know nothing about no Persian. See? You see?
I just want to jump ahead because okay. They begin to come in as Greeks. What did they bring? What kind of people were they? I mean, they had to be great fighters. They overthrew the Egyptians. Let's talk about them. Who were they? How did they overturn such a powerful civilization?
Well, first place you have to understand this, Clemson, is that the Greeks was uncivilized savages who had no writing system or a form of writing. They were uncivilized. There's never been an institution that ever came out of Greece. That you have to understand. Okay? So what did they bring with them? They didn't, let's say, use force on the ancient Egyptians, so far as we know, and what we call force today. Okay, such as coming in, shooting, killing, etc., etc. You know, that's what we know of today. Okay, but what they did, they came in by way of a wave of Europeans and flooding the area over there. okay? And they began to take over the control of ancient Egypt and the ancient Egyptians. The ones that resisted them, they're the ones that got destroyed, okay? And used as an example for others to stay in line, okay? But see, the ancient Egyptians, you got to remember, never had an army, nor were there any jails in ancient Egypt. The ancient Egyptians had a near perfect government that has ever existed on earth. They had no jails or army. Now, to prove that they never had an army, that anytime you go to an institution that displays ancient Egyptian artifacts, you will never find war weapons in that display. So they had no armies or jails. You have jails because a government or the head of the government is corrupt. That's what jails are for corrupt people. So if your head of your government is corrupt, quite naturally the citizens of that government is going to be corrupt. So you need jails to put people in who get out of line. Okay? So therefore, the ancient Egyptians did not have any armies. The question that you asked, what happened to them? I'm asked that question all the time. I answer this way. What happened to the American Indian when the European come over here? He didn't have an army or jail. The Europeans took over his land area. What happened to the South American Indian when the Europeans came in that part of the world? He didn't have an army or jails to stop the Europeans. What happened to the Indians of India who the Europeans came in and took over and caused a man that is known in history as Mahatma Gandhi to come into existence, to try to throw them off? What happened to the Chinese when the Europeans came in and occupied Hong Kong for 150 years? They just gave it back to China last year, 98. What happened to the Aborigines of Australia when the Europeans came over there? So it's just not the ancient Egyptians. You got to remember, during the time of antiquity, before the Europeans came into the continent of Africa, no race of people, no place on earth had armies or jails. Armies, armed aggression, is a European institution. That's their institution. They were fighting each other and killing each other in Europe before they came out of Europe into other parts of and areas of the world. They were killing each other over there. See, that's their institution. The rest of the race of people living throughout the world coexisted with each other. The ancient Egyptians civilized this whole entire world. And they went around visiting other indigenous people around the world. And in so doing, they brought a high civilization to them. They brought civilization to the whole entire planet. And you cannot civilize people and then bust them upside the head at the same time or kill them.
All right, there you have it. Okay, now, at this point, what I recommend that you think for a minute. Just think about what he just told you. Think about it, and then pay attention to what you are witnessing and seeing today. Now you know where it came from. Now you know what we are witnessing today is not normal. It is not an ongoing story. It is as a result of a subject or a box or a rock or called history attached to an ongoing story. Hold on a minute.
If it is against the law for the bank to loan out depositors' money to you, how could the bank give you a loan? And if that's the case, how are they able to keep their doors open? And in some cities, they have the biggest buildings in town. What happens to the person who deposits money in the bank? What do they receive outside of nickels and dimes in the form of what's called interest? How can you get paid? Go to tarhakadebtelimination.org. That's tarhakadebtelimination.org. Fill out the Contact Us form, and I'll rush you my free report. Let's get down to the bottom of this situation. Let me show you how what's going on in how to deal with it. Okay, tarhakadebtelimination.org. Peace, y'all.
All right, now we back. Now, what I want to do at this point, because I just concluded my illustrious brother's information and what he had to say. Now, let's deal with this thing and see if we get some confirmation or witness to testify about what we've already done here this evening. Let's look at some advice for life by Degrassi Tyson. Okay? Hold on.
What's the impact you want to have on the world?
My impact would be people learn from me in a way that they are empowered by what I taught them. So that when they think of what they learned from me, they no longer think of me. They think of their own base of understanding of how this world works. And so that I become irrelevant. Because if people say, this is true because Tyson said so, then I failed. That's not how you teach someone. That's teaching them by authority. I want to teach you how to think about the world, and then you say, I have a new way to understand the world, and you run off. You don't even look back, because a new level of hunger has descended upon you, and methods and tools to feed that hunger are now accessible to you. So my impact would be that others are impacted and they don't even remember that I had something to do with it. On my tombstone, I want the epitaph, be ashamed to die until you have scored some victory for humanity. And a victory for humanity is not a victory for yourself. It's not statues, it's not your name, it's just humanity's better off. Any of us, I think, should want the world to be a little better off for you having lived in it. That doesn't mean people praising you, not even about that. But what do you have to give with no expectation of return? No one ever told me that I had to search for meaning in life. Many people look for meaning in life as though it's going to be under a rock or behind a tree. And I'm thinking to myself, you have more power than that. You have the power to create meaning in your life rather than passively look for it. So for me, I create the meaning. And meaning to me is, do I know more about the world today than I did yesterday? That enhances meaning for me. By whatever powers I have available to me, have I lessened the suffering of others? Or the corollary to that would be, have I enhanced the life of others? And I don't mean, have I devoted the whole day to doing that? Then I would be ignoring myself. But if there's some small gesture that I can do that can completely add value to someone's life, I'm going to do it. Because the leveraging of 10 minutes of my life into the happiness or enlightenment or the reduced suffering of someone else, I'd be irresponsible if I did not. If Einstein were here and we're talking with Einstein, we could talk to him for hours and hours and hours. You know what question will never come out of our mouths? Is, what college did you go to? I want to go to that same college. I bet most of your people who've sat in this chair, it's not about what college they went to. It's about their own initiative, their own drive, their own ambitions, their own curiosity. That is not taught in school, sadly. School, they view you as this empty vessel that they pour information in, and you test it over here, you get a high grade, you're praised. Is that who become the shakers and movers of the world? I don't think so. School should, as a minimum, preserve that curiosity for you. yeah, if you lost some of it, because it's not going to be in all of us, put it back in. So that when you graduate school, you can give literal meaning to the word commencement. Commencement means beginning. It doesn't mean ending. And so you leave school and you say to yourself, I now know how to learn. I now have a curiosity of all things I have yet to be exposed to. And I will now become a lifelong learner. Without that, you become ossified in whatever was the body of knowledge that existed the day you graduated. And you will lead a life always looking back at that time without continuing to grow who and what you can become in life.
What was it about your dad that impacted you so much that you still carry today?
For me, at least, was what level of wisdom did he glean in his life and then successfully communicate to me, either by example or by just explicit statement. For example, in high school, he was in gym class and they were lining up and they were about to enter the next athletic unit, and it was track and field. And the gym instructor pointed to my father online and said, Cyril Tyson, everyone look at him. He does not have the body type that would excel in track. And they used him as an example. And he says, what? No one is going to tell me what I can't do in my life. And he used that as a reason to start running. And he started track in that moment. He decided that one of his next tasks in life would be to take up running and excel at it. Within a few years of that, he became world class. At one time, had the 5th fastest time in the world. In the middle distance, they don't run this anymore, 600-yard run. In 1948, the Olympics was not yet ready to come back to us because we're still roiling from the Second World War. Instead, it was still an Olympics. It was called the GI Olympics, and it was held in Hitler's Stadium. So he competed in Hitler's Stadium in the late 1940s. It's just one of the great memories of his life. But the reason I'm saying all of that is they were competing against the New York Athletic Club. In the day, once you graduated college, you needed some sanctioning body to compete with. So there were athletic clubs. The New York Athletic Club at the time accepted only white Protestants. So there was another club called the Pioneer Club, which took everybody who was not accepted to the New York Athletic Club, which was basically blacks and Jews, is really what that came down to. And his best friend, Johnny Johnson, okay, was coming around the back stretch, might have been the quarter mile, coming on the final straightaway. And a runner from the New York Athletic Club is a few paces behind him. And Johnny Johnson overhears that runner's coach say, catch that. And he overheard this. And so what did he say to himself? He said, this is one he ain't going to catch. And that extended his lead to the finish line. And he tells this story not with any bitter tone. So he never had that kind of tone when he shared those stories with us. It was, here's an occasion to parlay what today might be called a microaggression into a reason to excel even more than you had expected of your own abilities and talents. And so I have taken that lesson with me. I met Carl Sagan when I was 17. I was applying to colleges. He was at Cornell. I had been accepted at Cornell, but didn't know what college I wanted to go to. And the admissions office saw that I wasn't totally in the moment there. I didn't know this. They had forwarded my application to him for his reaction. I was already deep in the universe since I was 9. And he sent me a letter. He doesn't know me from Adam. I'm a 17-year-old kid from the Bronx. He's a professor of astronomy at Cornell University. And I get this letter, and I open it. It says, I understand you like the same stuff I like. Do you want to come visit the campus to help you decide if you want to go to Cornell? It was like, whoa, now he hadn't done Cosmos yet. That's how old I am. But he was already famous. So I took him up on it. I took a bus up to Ithaca, New York. He met me outside his building on a Saturday, invited me up to his office, saw the labs. I'm there in front of him. He did something really cool. He reached back, didn't even look, grabbed a book off the shelf. It was one of his books. I thought that was a badass thing. Don't even have to look. That's one of my books. Yep. Okay, here. And he signed it to me. Neil Tyson, future astronomer, signed Carl. Later in the day, I'm ready to go back to New York. It begins to snow, as it does often in December in Ithaca. And he says, here's my home number. If the bus can't get through from the snow, spend the night with my family and go back tomorrow. I'm thinking, who am I? What? I'm nobody. But I was somebody to him. And I said to myself, if I'm ever as remotely famous as he is, I will treat students the way he has treated me. How do I create meaning in my life as I go forward? My first question of me wasn't, where do I find meaning? It was, how do I create meaning? And that started early teens.
Did you help your kids with this? Is that something that you found a way to sort of educate on or pass down so that they would be asking a similar question instead of doing the sort of wander search thing?
Yeah, I have an unorthodox approach to what we did with our kids. We discussed this, my wife and I wanted to make sure that however they were raised, that they retained the curiosity of childhood into adulthood. Okay, let's say there's a little toddler walking here, okay, crawling on the ground. It comes up and they start grabbing this. What's the first thing? No, don't touch that. Okay, this was an experiment waiting to happen that you just squashed. This is a cup. It has water in it. Okay, this is breakable. The kid doesn't know that. They want to experiment, so they'll grab it. It'll fall. It'll break. Water will spill all over. That was an experiment you just prevented. They are experimenting with their environment. Everything is new to them. I saw a woman walking with their kid. The kid has galoshes on and a raincoat on, and they're coming down the walkway. And there's this big, juicy, muddy puddle right there. And I said, please let the kid jump in the puddle. You know the kid wants to jump in the puddle. The kid is like 3 or 4. You know the kid, and what does the mother do? She pulls the kid around to prevent that from happening. That's an experiment in cratering. That's what craters happen that way. You splash the water, there's mud, it's fun. You get to see the cause and effect of a force, downward force operating on a fluid. Gone. That was a bit of curiosity in that moment that was extinguished. So, with our kids, curiosity, provided it does not kill them, if it meant we had extra work in front of us, I would do that extra work. And I have pretty high confidence that they'll retain that curiosity through the turbulent middle school years into high school. And what is an adult scientist? But a kid who's never lost the curiosity. We live in a very fractured world today, but what is clear is that the internet has enabled, and social media have enabled people to tribalize. You might go your whole life without ever finding another person who thinks the earth is flat. You go online and you see them all, and they have conventions, and they meet here, even if it's only virtual. So you have ways to say why you are different from other people. And I don't know that that's always a healthy place to be. In a pluralistic land, you want to celebrate differences rather than go out of your way to establish differences and then claim one group is better than another. You can draw a line in the sand between people who transgress but do not hold power over you from those who transgress and do. So the coach who said catch that, he doesn't have power over Johnny Johnson unless you allow him to. This is a famous quote from Martin Luther King. You can only be ridden if your back is bent. When I grew up, it was very common to hear the phrase, sticks and stones can break my bones, but words will never hurt me. You recited this. This is what you were told when you came home, when you said, oh, you know, this bully called me a name, or sticks and stones can break my bone, but words will never hurt me. And so this was an inoculation against hate speech, really, against just evil people, just nasty people. You were able to develop a system of defenses against unpleasant people out there. And I haven't heard that phrase in a long time. What I think has happened over the years is we came to learn as a civilization that words can be hurtful. I don't have a problem with that. This is an enlightened new place to understand the role of our emotional state and how it interacts with our world around us. That's an advance in mental health. What I see on the flip side of that coin, however, is people are less able to deal with the very same people who are around today who were around back then, who are calling you names, the people who might be bullying you on the internet by saying things about you. I don't know that we have how to defend against that now other than seeing a counselor for your emotional state. I can say from the era in which I grew up, I don't give a rat's ass what you say to me, okay? Unless you are between me and some goal, then I'll have to navigate that some way. If there's a racist person or a sexist person or a person with some kind of cultural bias, I want to know that, actually. I don't want them to hide that. I want you to say everything you want to say. Then I'll say, okay, that's who you are. That's how you're thinking. So now what do I need to do because you're in my way? Do I dig under you, go around you, leap over you? Or do I go this way and then come out the other side? Yeah, it's longer, it's more effort, it's more energy, but on some level it's sort of same shit, different day. I think we should all get as high grades as you can. But if you don't get the highest grades possible, no one should be standing in judgment of that. If you have some other ambitions that have pathways that don't get encoded in the GPA that other people are referencing.
When you approach a topic that you don't know well, what is your actual process to learn?
Great question. I read things that take me to places where other people think. If I'm an educator, I want to know that. Because when you're speaking to me and I have some understanding of you, I can navigate your receptors for learning. I don't have to have you come to where I am. That's not right. I'm the educator, not you. You're the curious person. So I'm going to meet you on your territory. What I do for the public is almost 80+% of it is driven by duty, not by ambition.
What gives you the sense of duty?
Because I can do something. And if I can do it better than others, and it's for a greater good in society, I would be irresponsible if I did not.
All right, we're back. In my opinion, that was some very, very good advice. I have a caller with his hand raised at area code 810. I'm going to open up the lines. 810, you are on the air. Tell us who you are and where you're calling from.
My name is Eric L., and I am calling from the territory of Texas that we call Texas. And brother, you are putting together a beautiful collage. This is very powerful, man. Oh boy, this is more powerful than some presentations that people spend a lot of time talking, don't get nowhere. These are collages coming from different views, different nationalities, and man, it is rocking me. I love that Dr. Clemson Brown got an opportunity to interview the great Walter Williams. And I'm sure Brother Clemson Brown, you might know of this, Tarhaka, that he put together the great Dr. Gabriel Oyibo, them two together to have a meeting in their home. And man, that's a powerful YouTube that people can go and check out. Two of the greatest minds we have in our community, Dr. Gabriel Oyibo and Dr. Walter Williams, had a great conversation.
Okay,
and so, yeah.
But I haven't ran across that one yet. I got to go and check that out and see if I can sit down and listen to that one. I'm glad you brought that to my attention, man. And
yes. Yeah, it's very powerful. Yeah, go check it out, man. It's at least 2 hours long, and you got Dr. Clemson Brown video in it, and you got Dr. Walter Williams, you know, with his take on the Bible, and then Dr. Gabriel Oyibo just fill in the gaps. You know, he let him know about the great powerful story about the waters of noon, how the Spirit passed over the water in the beginning of Genesis. And he tell them that, you know, there's spots of truth in the Bible, just like in everything, there's spots of truth. And then there's the you know, there's what you taking us over, the jumping on the train late and try to put your piece into the story, but you know what I'm saying? But the people that's been riding and conducting from the beginning, they know who jumped on later. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Beautiful analogy out there.
I
Go ahead.
thought I would try to put it in a more better digestible position for our people so they can, narrow it down. Because Dr. Williams, he just passed away, and that's my boy, man. We've been going back, man. Me and him been rolling for years doing this thing in North Africa. And he passed away, but I wanted to see if I could make it more digestible with the last few plugs that I had on him, because we did a tribute to him a couple of days ago. And I said, well, I had more footage left on it. I said, I'm going to run this here this morning, because I was supposed to run it Sunday night, but I had tech problems on Block Talk. But anyway, I got up this morning and done it. But nevertheless, I'm definitely going to go and check out what you were saying about this plug-in, because I got to hear this for myself. I've never heard that before.
Oh man, it is powerful. Woo! I'm talking about, it's one of the most powerful clips of Walter, just the two great minds coming together. And thanks to Dr. Clemson Brown, I know he put that together. And Dr. Clemson Brown traveled extensively with Dr. Gabriel Yibo, seen him get crowned as Pharaoh. They break down what Pharaoh is. They go through the same thing that Dr. Williams say about the history is all false. Man, we got some powerful. Thank you so much, man. It ain't no coincidence that I looked you up just to go into your archive, but caught you live. Man, I had no idea you was going to be on live. I didn't listen to the whole show from the beginning. It was great. Hey, especially when the brother said there was no army. There was no army or no jails in these places with these indigenous people. Man, that blew my mind.
Well, the thing is right here. Just like I said, I've been saying all along through this broadcast, we have an ongoing story, and history is an object. It was let's say we create a box, and we're going to take this box and attach it to an ongoing story. Now, inside the box, even on the outside of the box is labeled history. And what we have done is thought that when you say history, we're talking about the beginning of the ongoing story. No. History is a subject that was created and attached to an ongoing story. And history is exactly what it said it is. Story, which is a lie.
It's actually a removal, because you got, Brother Tarhaka, you have the medical, a lot of people in the etymology and Black's Law Dictionary, people need to get a medical dictionary. History comes from hysterectomy, right? Which is a removal of the uterus and the rectum.
Yeah, removal of the truth, removal of part of the ongoing story. So see, if we go back to when we was growing up, we was in junior high school, they told us that no two objects can occupy the same space at the same time. And so if we understand that, and we know that there's an existing space, and you put something else in that space that don't belong, they can't occupy the same space at the same time, because the equation have changed. Things are different. And see, if we just use common sense, which is what we got going, because the problem is malignant now. You can have a small little piece of cancer on your leg if you don't do nothing about it, and spread out over your whole leg. So we got the subject called history that is malignant to the point that people, when you say, well, history said this, that, and the other. Now you finna start lying because you used the word history. You didn't say, well, look, our ancient story says this, that, and the other. If you do that, now you're ready to start telling the truth. And that's when people going to start leaving because you finna mess up the lie because they done bought into the lie. If you that's why when you go to the church and you was right there at the door, the deacons over the church for you to come in and you tell the deacons right at the church. When I come in here, I got to start asking questions. They said, well, hold on a minute, you can't come in here. What kind of questions you going to ask? I'm going to ask questions about the truth. Oh no, we can't let you in here.
Yeah, that's right.
So we're going to have to put you out of here. You come and tell what truth you going to tell? Well, there's never been a man in the history of the world by any race, creed, or color, by the name of Jesus Christ. You know you're getting out of here. You can't come in here. We need to gather up all the Bibles and throw them in the garbage can. Oh, no, son, that Bible cost me $13. I ain't going to let you up in here, no.
Hey, anybody want to test? Anybody want to test Dr. Williams on what he say? Anybody can look now. The evidence is coming out. Dr. Eddie Long, T.D. Jakes, man, it's all coming out, man. You call on another man to save you, you know, you're gonna change your whole genetic structure. So it's a beautiful day, man. It's a beautiful day.
Our people are slow. I tried to get Dr. Williams to understand that back when we was doing this stuff when he was living. I said, Dr. Williams, I said, our people are slow. I said, now the shows that we doing, we putting it down, we laying it down, man, we putting it down, man. This goes to grain of all the lies that never been told. I said, but our people, I said, it's going to take them a while. But one day, they're going to start waking up. And every once in a while, we'll have a guy call in on our broadcast when me and him were doing this stuff. And guys say, hey, man, I was a pastor, but after listening to y'all, man, I've been listening to y'all past 3-4 shows, man. And, man, I ain't no pastor no more. I ain't with this no more, man.
Wow.
You know? And if you go back and listen to previous broadcasts, you'll hear these people. But I told Dr. Williams, I say our people are slow. I'm 72 years old. One day I'll pass away. But if the internet is still there, sooner or later, we're going to have much more people wake up.
Yes.
They're going to wake up, man. They're going to say, well, I've been doggone. I've been all my money, all these years, I've been getting 10% of my income to this church. It ain't growing. The pastor is driving a $200,000 car. He the fattest one in the building. He's steady telling me the same thing over and over. He seems like the only one in the building getting blessed. I ain't getting nowhere, and I ain't getting nothing. Something wrong. So they're going to eventually figure it out, and they're going to wake up. It's just that our people are slow. We just got to work along with them. Just wait. You can't force them to do nothing. Just keep telling the truth. It's just like...
And the pastor name is Creflo Dollar and Fred Price. I mean, look at the names that they put on these. they tell you what they about, man. Give me some dollars.
Well, the thing is, when I ran a plug not too long ago showing where back in the day, there when Christianity and the church first came out, white folks had it, and they closest Negro slave to get involved with it, and then the Negro, they said, well, look, you can get your own church, but you got to preach what we tell you to preach. You can't be going over here, this, that, and the other. You got to just, as long as you preach to your people what we tell you to preach, you're all right. It was a business because white folks make money, and then black folks start making money with the same thing, but they still doing the same thing today. They got, if you want a church that you the building that you want to put that church in, $300,000-$400,000, you can go to the Christian bank, and the bank will loan you the $400,000 for you to have that church with the little criteria that they got. But however, in order for you to get that $400,000 to buy that building and have your church in there, you got to preach what they tell you to preach. You can't come in there and say, well, look, I know what I'm going to preach. Man, I'm going to preach something totally different than what the church said. No. You ain't getting $400,000.
Wow.
If we tell you to preach, or else you ain't going to get the loan. I put that information out, 2 broadcasts ago.
Oh, okay. I don't need to go back and check that out. Yeah, wow.
All you got to do is go over there on YouTube and just type it in, and you see what I'm talking about. Either you can, it's right there on Facebook, little short links they have.
Uh-huh.
Matter of fact, I ran it on the last broadcast I just did. Well, the brother say he went to they said, well, we went to the bank, and the bank, it was no. You went to the wrong bank. Go to the Christian bank, the church bank. They got their own bank. Go there, and they'll give you the loan for what you want to do. And
wow.
He went there and said, well, we're going to give you the loan, brother. You can do this. But however, these are the rules and regulations that, this how you get the loan. Just read over that right there and make sure that you willing to go along with this. And they tell you the same thing when you join the church. I joined the church. I went in there, I ain't going to call the name of the church, but I went in there and the pastor said, put your hand on the Bible, hold your left hand up, and say, do you promise to follow the rules and regulations and guidelines and the government of this church?
Wow.
I didn't know what he was saying until I went up in there and started telling the truth. Heck, the pastor, wait a minute now. The deacon said, oh, Lord, he told me he got up in front of me, the deacon did, and he said, when a child is born into this world, he's born into sin, and he's guilty of sin. I said, whoa. I held my hand up. He said, well, sir, what you was? I said, wait a minute. I said, that something ain't sitting right with me. I said, now you need to tell me, when a child is born, a brand new newborn baby, he don't know nothing. He can't talk. He can't walk. He don't know nothing. But you mean to tell me that he is, you're pronouncing him guilty of sin, that he can't even spell the word. Well, that's right. I said, man, I can't go along with that. Well, look, I need to get out in here. I said, you better get something out, man. So when the pastor came, I said, he want to know what the problem. I said, well, he just said that a newborn child is born in the world, is born into sin. How could a child be guilty of sin when he have no knowledge that an infraction had ever been incurred?
Absolutely.
Oh, Lord. But I tell you what, you come on out of here, and we're going to put you over here.
Yeah.
We got a crap going on up in here, man.
Wow.
Put me out of the building.
Put you out?
Yeah. Yeah, we really, oh, no, we're glad he's going, because he's messing up the money. We done got this money from these people. We done went along with the Okadoke, and he getting all outside of the script and messing with this thing called the truth. And we can't have that up in here. This is a house of lies, masquerading as the truth.
Yeah. Wow. Hey, Elder Tarhaka, that lady you had on there, is that Dr. McIntosh or McIntyre? The one that spoke about the 250,000-year-old findings that she found, and you talked about the falcons in Utah.
Oh, I don't remember her name right off, but it sounds like Dr. McIntyre. It's a white woman. When she come on, because I had two of them in the podcast, one of them was talking about, I don't understand what, everything black, y'all invented this, y'all invented that, and all this stuff. And then we had the other, that was McIntyre, a black woman. And she went down, and only thing she doing is regurgitating what me and Dr. Williams been talking about for years. And me and Dr. Williams got off the track when I started bringing it up about in the Americas. Specialized in North Africa, and I'm trying to tell him, Dr. Williams, we're doing a wonderful job over here. It can't be done no better. However, there's more to the story because we have an ongoing story, and we need to resurrect the truth up in the Americas. And he was not equipped for that, so I took on the initiative, and I'm still doing it. Breaking ground in the Americas. Now I'm going to do something here now with Deconstructing Tyson on death and near death.
Okay, all right, man, yeah.
So hold your hat for a minute. Let's see how this goes.
All right.
One of the things we know from research in psychology, as well as just practical matters in the conducting of scientific experiments, is that one of the lowest forms of evidence you could possibly invoke is eyewitness testimony, which is odd because it's one of the highest forms of evidence in the court of law, which disturbs me greatly. So if you come from a lab to a science conference and say, this is true, we say, how do you know this? Because I saw it. Well, that's really the end of your talk, and you just leave. And then we say, come back when you have a chart recorder, or you have, just give me something that does not have to flow through your senses. Because your senses is some of the worst data-taking devices that exist. And science did not achieve maturity, modern science did not achieve maturity until we had instruments that either extended our senses or replaced them. And Galileo, it's not an accident that we have modern science, as I've described it, experiment, verification, these tactics, these methods and tools, began with Galileo and Francis Bacon, and Galileo was around 1600. That was the invention in that period of the microscope and the telescope. So it's not an accident that all this sort of came together at that time. So now we have people who are in the act of dying, and they come back from life, and they report on mental experiences. And that's intriguing. It's intriguing. But because it is in the realm of eyewitness testimony, you can establish it perhaps as a personal truth. But it will take more than that to establish it as an objective truth. And an objective truth is the kind of truths that science discovers. And it's the kind of truth that is true whether or not you believe in it. Okay? It exists outside of your culture, your religion, your political affiliation. Personal truths, if I may consider that, would be, okay, Jesus is your Savior. That's your personal truth. You cannot convince someone else that Jesus is their Savior in an objective way. You have to persuade them. You have to persuade them in some cases by war, right? Look at the wars that have been fought between religions that did not agree about who was their respective saviors. Sure.
If I walked on water, made you unblind, created loaves and fishes out of nothing,
that would be amazing.
I think.
And we would investigate that, and we would say, whoa, yes, we would. It would be an amazing thing. And then if we cannot account for that by any other known laws of physics, and it's only happening with you, we'd wonder if you were like alien or something first, right? But no, it would be so easy to demonstrate divinity if in fact you had the power you wanted to display. But getting back to the gentleman's point, so part of this issue is, what does it mean to be dead? Okay, it used to be, did you fog a mirror that was held up in front of you while you were laying there on your bed? All right, and if you didn't fog the mirror, you were judged to be dead. They would put you in a coffin, And in some parts, it is told, there's a string that they put into the coffin as they buried you, and they put it over a tree branch and connected to a bell. If you woke up, you would pull the string, and that's where you get the term dead ringer, okay? You would pull the string, and you come rescue me because you buried a living person, okay? So, then it was you're dead because your heart stops. Well, we know why a heart beats. It's electrochemical. So you do pa-chunk, the heart beats again. We got that one. Okay? Well, is it when you're brain dead? Well, you can be brain dead, but your heart is still beating. And we can keep you alive. Are you dead yet? Well, no, because your heart's still beating. Is your brain functioning? No. Okay, I can tell you this, that if you're dead long enough so that your brain is deprived oxygen, and then we bring you back, you're not talking about seeing any lights because you're brain dead, okay? So, plus, this often happens to someone who is deathly ill to begin with, and where are they? They're in a hospital. And if they go into cardiac arrest or something critical, they take you from your hospital bed to an operating table. And what is sitting above an operating table? Lights. Bright lights, okay? And so, if you say, oh, I was dead and I came back and I saw lights, maybe it's not all the cases, but it's many of the cases, okay? Now, there were skeptics who tried to do an experiment. There are people who say they left their body, and they saw, we got some of those?
Montesquieu.
So here's what when was Montesquieu?
He got rear-ended by some guy on a horse, fell off, flew up into the air, looked down at himself in agony, watched his wife come
they had
over.
rear-end collisions in the era of horses?
Montaigne, not Montesquieu.
Still, they had rear-end collisions in the era of horses?
Well, you ride a horse with a guy behind you who's riding too fast. It's like a cab situation.
Okay, I didn't know that. Okay. Okay. So, I didn't know that.
Well, I love stopping you mid-sentence.
Rear-end collision with the horses. Where was I? So there was an experiment. So there's some descriptions that are part of this near-death experience literature where they come above and they see themselves down there on the bed. Okay? So what they decided to do is for people who are about to die, they would write a message facing upwards to the ceiling above the bed and suspend it there. So if a person goes above their bed and looks down, they'd be able to read the message. So when they rejoin their body, they should then tell us what message they saw. That's never happened. It's just, no. That's a no. Now, I have a cousin who, when her father died, was alone with him in the room, and he's in an open casket. And she's otherwise completely rational, okay? I'm not saying this is a crazy person. She's a real estate agent, okay?
Speaks for itself.
Okay. Among other okay. So she's in there. She tells me of a conversation she had with her dead father. And I said, was it in your mind? No, he sat up and spoke to her. I said, what was the conversation? And she said, well, he said, don't worry about him. He's in a better place, this sort of thing. So this is her eyewitness testimony. I'm not going to say it's wrong. I'm just saying it's not scientifically useful. That's all I'm really saying here, okay? I told her, next time this happens, ask these questions and not those questions, okay? Don't say, are you happy? No, say, are you wearing clothes? Where are you? Where did you get your clothes? What temperature is it? Just ask questions. Like, this is an amazing scientific experiment you could be performing. So that's my lesson to all of you, that if you find yourself in that situation, okay? Because if a dead person sits up and starts talking to me, oh my God, my iPhone is coming out. I'm getting chart recorders. I'm going to be all up in that as an experimenter. Okay.
Okay. All right, y'all. I got it. That's amazing to me. Brother, you still with me? 810. You still with me?
I'm still here.
Okay. All right now. I've heard it all. But now I'm able to separate fact from fiction because if you listen to your elders, they, when you go to sleep, the real you leave the body and it goes places and do things. You come back and you wake back up. But as you get older, slower and slower and slower, and longer and more fantastic voyages you have and all of that stuff. I'm a living witness for that because I'll turn 72 this year in July. However, I go back and I think my mama said, well, my mama, she be in here with me all the time. She be standing right over there, and I hear it from her. She in her 90s, and then I'm dating a girl. I'm older than her. She in her 40s, and I'm in my 50s. And she told me, yeah, my mama, she come in here once in a while. She be talking to me and stuff like that. So I said, okay, and I heard it over and over and over again all my life. So all these people can't be lying. There's something that they see, and there's someone they see, if you will. And but where the lie get off the track is when you start saying, well, history proves this, that, and near death and death experiences and stuff, they're real, and the previous lives and all of that is real. However, I got to move on to the next thing. I think I got 45 minutes. I'm going to deal with the all-time best arguments with Tyson. So I'm going to bring this on and see how that goes. So hold on a minute.
There was a headline in Nature, the British journal Nature, which said after the study was released, 93% of elite scientists reject God. That was supposed to be a shocking headline. And I look at that and I said, that's not even interesting. That was the trend line anyway. What's more interesting, which was not the headline, is that 7% of elite scientists pray to a god. Isn't that a more interesting fact to you?
How about you are about to be executed?
Oh, I'm about to be executed.
You have nothing except your knowledge and your knowledge of science, your experience.
I would request that my body in death be buried, not cremated, so that the energy content contained within it gets returned to the earth so that flora and fauna can dine upon it just as I have dined upon flora and fauna throughout my life. In America, 90% of the nation would claim to be religious. And you define this in a way that's unambiguous. You don't say, well, do you go to church every Sunday? You don't ask that question. Plenty of people go to church who are not religious. They go to get a date or so. They go for the cupcakes or something. They don't go to be spiritually enlightened. So you ask a different question. You say, is there a God that listens to your prayers? If you answer yes to that, you're religious by anybody's definition, because your understanding of a deity is that that deity is monitoring your daily affairs. So that's unambiguous. This number's dropped in the last couple of years, but it's about 90%. Turns out if you go to college and get an advanced degree, a master's or a doctorate, where these are degrees where you actually question the state of existing knowledge. The undergraduate degree doesn't really do that. You're learning from textbooks that are written by somebody else. Your doctrines are already there. The higher degrees imply that you are questioning the very fabric of the knowledge you had previously learned. Among that community, it's 60%. It has dropped. Well, that's interesting. Let's keep going. How about scientists of all stripes? So biologists, chemists, sorry, let's include engineers as well, people who have formal scientific training, mathematicians as well. Okay, what happens next? Drops to 40%. Now, if you look at this number, it looks like, wow, so scientists, the public is 90%, scientists are 40%. No, the drop is not that significant because every scientist has an advanced degree. So in fact, the drop is not from 90 to 40, the drop is from 60 to 40. So becoming a scientist is not as big an effect on whether you're religious as you might otherwise think. Most of the drop comes because you're educated beyond the level of college. So that's 40%. So now you go to elite scientists, members of the National Academy, highly accomplished subset among scientists, the number drops to 7%. There was a headline in Nature, the British journal Nature, which said after this study was released, 93% of elite scientists reject God. That was supposed to be a shocking headline. And I look at that and I said, that's not even interesting. That was the trend line anyway. What's more interesting, which was not the headline, is that 7% of elite scientists pray to a god. Isn't that a more interesting fact to you? Isn't that kind of interesting? The most accomplished scientists in the world in that community, 7% of them still pray to a personal god. I think that is deserving of more study than the 93% who don't. Because something's going on there. We don't know what. And I have confronted people on this. I would say to the most sort of vociferous in the atheist community, I would say, you're beating the public over the head, telling them, why are you doing it? And I'm thinking, before you beat the public, why don't you beat them over the head, okay? No, I'm just saying, if you're going to rank, if you just, because you understand that first, because if you can't convert that 7%, you've got no hope in the general public. That's all I'm saying. This is among the ranks of the scientifically educated. Do you know on my Facebook page, I was in Florida for the launch of the repair mission for the Hubble telescope, and I know some of the people on board. Some of them are astrophysicist colleagues and friends of mine. So I said, beautiful launch, beautiful day. I said in my update, status update, and I said, Godspeed, Atlantis astronauts. Well, in came this one, I thought you were an atheist. Why could you use such a word? It's like, then someone else said, actually it says right here that he's agnostic. So this became the subject in the thread. I had to jump back in and I said, Godspeed was the banner headline the day that John Glenn was put into orbit back in 1962. And since then, it has been an iconic phrase deep within the culture of the aerospace community. If you're religious, it means God be with you up there. And if you're not religious, it's just being culturally honest about how aerospace people communicate with each other. And then I posed the question. I got this award from the American Humanist Association. So these are people who cross off the word God in every dollar bill that comes through their possession. This is like an energy level that I can't even imagine having. So I said, because they were upset about this too. And I said, well, how many people here have ever used the word goodbye? All the hands went up. I said, well, goodbye comes from God be with you. Ooh, we didn't know that. That's what goodbye comes from. It's a contraction of God be with you. And when would you say that? When you left the city gates and had to go between cities in the dangerous countryside where you might get mugged or robbed or raped or worse. So you say, God be with you to protect you on your journey. Well, we don't have city gates anymore. We have space. So Godspeed is the counterpart to that expression because it's speed that's going to kill you going into orbit. So I find it so I'm okay with that. There's an interesting cultural history in the community of aerospace. And so that's why I can't claim myself, I can't agree to the claims by atheists that I'm one of that community. I don't have the time, energy, interest of conducting myself that way. I'm perfectly happy going to see the rock opera Jesus Christ Superstar. I have Handel's Messiah on my iPhone, along with Bach's B minor Mass. That's some of my favorite bits of music. This is what I do, and I'm perfectly fine with that. I'm perfectly fine with having religious people who live all around me. I'm not trying to convert people. I don't care. We're in a religiously pluralistic society. Most of what accounts for the immigration waves into this nation were people fleeing religious persecution in their hometown. And no one will deny the richness of this country as a product of the immigration that unfolded. I'm okay with that. Just keep it out of the science classroom.
Why does religion have such a persistent hold on human thought despite all that we know of science?
Yeah, I think there are several ways one can address that question. Let me address it in a consider not long ago when so much of the Western world was the state was the religion. And we have actually moved quite a distance from that compared with 200 years ago, 300 years ago, 400 years ago, the era of the Inquisition and this sort of thing. And so to say that it has such a grip, it has a fraction of the grip that it once did on the operations of human conduct and of society. So the real question is, if implicit in that is, given what we know of science, why would religion still have any grip at all? Why does it still have a big grip? Because it's not a big grip when you look in the developed world. So, in fact, most of Europe are just, they're whole countries where religion has essentially disappeared entirely. And the countries are not full of violence and, it's just the assumption that you have to be religious to be moral is a false one. It's empirically false because you just look around in places where that's the case. So, so that's one fact. And we pull away from that a little. There's plenty of what goes on in religious texts that has tremendous value to how to think about life and how to treat one another. In fact, Jefferson created what was essentially what you can think of as Thomas Jefferson, the Jefferson Bible. I don't know if you ever heard of this. He went through the Bible, and I think both the Old and the New Testaments, and he crossed off everything that was sort of mythical, magical, things that clearly violated known laws of nature, and kept the rest, and said, here is the stuff of the Bible that should have value to any modern person going forward. If you look at people who are religious today, who are not in conflict with science, they have viewed their religious text as a spiritual, something that gives them spiritual support, not as a science textbook. The conflict in society is when you have those who are still religious, who want to use their religious text as their access point to understanding the natural world. And persistent efforts of the past to make that happen have just simply failed. The Bible does not work as a science textbook. In fact, Galileo knew this, and he himself was a religious man. He's famously quoted as saying, the Bible tells you how to go to heaven, not how the heavens go. So on that scale, the conflict comes about when that subset of the religious community feels threatened by scientific discoveries that are different from how they interpret what the natural world should be in the Bible.
I read a book, Consolation of Philosophy. The main guy, Boethius, is condemned to death. He has everything taken from him. All he has is his reason and his sense of self. Not even that. But he attempts to console himself to this execution by reasoning that the world has order, that there is something that keeps things together, and he uses his reason to try and get to the root of why he should be at peace at death. The problem is, his source of origin is a belief in God. What would you do?
Well, I don't know if I fully understand the question. I do know that if he's about to be executed...
How about you are about to be executed?
Oh, I'm about to be executed.
You have nothing except your knowledge and your knowledge of science, your experience.
I would request that my body, in death, be buried, not cremated, so that the energy content contained within it gets returned to the earth so that flora and fauna can dine upon it, just as I have dined upon flora and fauna throughout my life. Now, philosophers basically invented atheism. And if you do this, if you check the statistic for philosophers, it's below 1%. There are no religious, the only religious philosophers there are, they're like theologian philosophers, all right? If you subtract the theologic philosophers, this number is essentially zero, all right? So they're basically birthed atheism, the philosophers. And there's this talk, I don't know here in Australia, does the Bible in the public school class or not? No, is it by law or is it just by tradition? Is it by law? Okay, so in America there's this understanding that the state and the church are separate. And by and large that's been honored for most of the history of the country, by and large. And what's interesting about America, a point that was a little bit alluded to earlier today, is that it was founded on the principle that the state has no religion. The state is indifferent to what religion you might have. So that means there's no authority over you that's going to tell you who and what to worship. And that's a state that we all take for granted, but so many places in the world that is not true. Well, there's a case in New Jersey where a middle school kid was lectured to by the history teacher in a public school, and the history teacher said, if you don't accept Jesus as your Lord and Savior, you are going to hell. There's a little Muslim girl there, said you are already damned to hell. First point. Second, that Noah had dinosaurs on his ark. Third point he made is that Big Bang and evolution are just theories, and you can take them or leave them.
All right, everybody, we're back. Now, that was interesting, very, very interesting. I'm going to take a quick break, and when I come back, I'm going to open up the phone lines so my brother can get back in. We can chop it up a little bit more. So I want y'all to hold on a minute, and I'll be back, okay? Y'all hold on. I'll be right back.
Baby, you better stop listening to all of that talk out there in the street. You know what those guys are about. You see, they want the same thing I want. I want you, baby. You feel me? Honey, they're trying to say you might be too much for me. But tonight I'm curious. Yeah. You might bring a man down to his knees, but tonight I'm curious. Oh, baby, listen, I know you got it in all the right places, and I ain't gonna doubt it, that you know just what you're doing. But tonight, baby, I want you to take me there. Oh, yeah. Trying to say you might be too much for me, but tonight I'm curious. Yeah, you might bring me down to my knees, but tonight I'm curious. Listen, I know a trick or two that I might can teach you. I'm gonna take my time, baby, show you just what I can do. So take my hand, girl. Let me show you I'm serious. Oh, yeah. Honey, they're trying to say you might be too much for me, but tonight I'm curious. Oh, baby. They say you might bring a man down to his knees, but tonight I'm curious. swear you got to take me there. Let's get it on, baby. Get it on, get it on. It's been too long. Oh, baby. Listen, honey, they're trying to say you might be too much for me. But tonight I'm curious. Yeah. They say you might bring a man down to his knees. But tonight I'm curious. Oh, baby. Hey, baby. Been too long. Let's get it on. Been too long. Oh, baby. Been too long. Oh, baby.
Thank you for walking me to my car.
I'd like to be walking you to your doorstep.
Well, it is the middle of the night.
Are you thinking what I'm thinking?
You get in the car and you'll see.
All right. There you have it. We're back. I'm going to open up the phone lines at area code 810.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
You on there, bro?
Yeah, Brother Tarhaka, who was that music by?
Well, that's Wisdom Meadows.
Man, that's some old stuff. I was jamming, but we don't hear that good music like that no more.
No, man, them jitterbugs, man, I don't know about that. But one thing about them I found out, because every once in a while I'll get outside and relax, you know, because I deal with a lot of clients and all kind of stuff, man, online and offline and on the phone and all that. But then once in a while, man, I had to take a break, man, because they be wearing me out. They call me from California to New York, from New York to Miami, from Miami all over America, and then here come Hawaii, what is Germany, all over. So I get out there and I play it, and I noticed they come down. They had their little groups. They be walking down the sidewalk, but when I find that up, everybody stopped.
Yeah.
Talking to one another right there, man. This is the spot. We be rapping, but this brother here talking.
Absolutely. Yes, yes. It's the vibration, man. When you have something that's valuable and you done nurtured it and you know how to give it to the people, hey, man, it's a beautiful transformation. You could tell that you receiving information through someone that's seasoned. You know, it comes with wisdom. It's the wisdom. Yeah.
We can't count them out because they ain't lost. They know the difference from right and wrong. And sometimes I be here on the computer and I look out the window. They be walking by. They be looking over here. And he ain't playing no more of that music. I'm coming back by. Maybe when we come back, he might be playing. They want some more. So
yeah.
They learning, man. They just, you know, a lot of them are young and stuff. They don't have no guidance and stuff, but they know good stuff and stuff that's righteous. They know it when they hear it. So we don't have to worry about it. We'll be all right. You gotta still keep guiding them though.
Yes, yes. Yeah, Elder Tarhaka, I'm gonna ask if you take my number down there, and I'd like to text you. I used to be on the radio with Beverly D. I heard you call into her show before, Beverly D Radio on Blog Talk.
I ain't listened to Beverly in years. Hold on a second.
They cut her off.
They cut her off. Why?
Yeah, Blog Talk is doing that to a lot of people, but a lot of people can't get on Blog Talk no more, so they just walked away from it.
Okay.
It's spotty. You can get on every now and then, but it's not consistent like it used to be. So she walked away and she got on Bundle. But I used to bring guests onto her show. I done bought a bunch of different people. I would like to connect you with. I have Dr. Gabriel Oyibo number, and I have some very interesting people you might want to talk to. Man, this brother who's into He's a horologist. He makes watches. And man, this brother's deep when it comes to metals, man, precious metal, palladium and gold and silver, and he knows the metaphysical properties, man, the trees. He's deep with trees and nature. Man, this brother's sharp. I'm sure you would enjoy talking to him. I'm sure he lives in Brazil.
Okay.
And the brother's sharp. But you keep my number down and let's text back and forth, and I'll send you some of these brothers' numbers. I love when you had Dr. Hindu Henderson on your show a while back, man. He was dropping some bombs too.
I ain't talking, brother. Hindu Henderson in years, man. You talking about whatever, about 2012, man. You talking about some years ago, man.
Yeah, they 12, 13 years ago. Yeah, but that's how powerful your platform being. I've been listening for years, my brother, years, man. And Dr. Henderson coming on, nobody really knew about him. Nobody knew none of that stuff that he was saying. Nobody even heard of it, but his stuff lined up with Dr. Walter Williams. All these places that they say exist over here, no, that's way over there. You know?
Okay. All right. Well, I got I've been trying to get a hold to Irritated Genie and try to bring him on. Brother Yoel was supposed to be on with me last night, but he's on a store, man, and we had complications, tech problems, and I couldn't get on. But I was trying to bring Brother Yoel back on so we could do this show. And I'm trying to get a hold to the Irritated Genie. He done changed his name and stuff, Brother Aiello. I ain't looking at it. But anyway, he done changed his name, and I'm trying to get him on and get the other guests and stuff back on. But I'm gonna probably eventually leave this platform because I'm putting too much work in, and tell me I got technical difficulties and all this, so I got to go somewhere else, man. I can't keep putting all this work in and doing all this stuff, and people looking to hear broadcasts at a certain time, and then they tell me, well, I call it, ain't nothing happening, and all this, man. I got to get rid of this kind of stuff. But anyway, I got 21 minutes. I'm going to run one more plug, and when I come back, we can chop it up a little bit more. Okay?
Right on, brother. Right on, yes.
All right, because I got to get this right here, this 411 in right here on this brother here, and I got to bring Tyson back in there, and I'll let it roll with it right here. So hold on a minute.
It was a magpie, one of these birds known for how smart it is. There is a full, plastic thing of water, a water bottle, and it was full. So the magpie goes over and sips out the water. The beak is only, an inch and a half long or an inch at most, so it goes in until it can't reach the water anymore. So what does it do? It goes off to the side, gets a rock, just the right size, drops it into the water bottle.
It raises the level of the water.
Thereby displacing water. Here it is.
That is heavy.
You've got the video. There it is. And so it comes, and it goes back, and gets another stone, drops it in, and every time it drops it in, the water level rises, and it can drink more water. And it keeps doing this.
That's pretty amazing.
It's not going to go away. All the data support this. So now I've got this Big Bang thing. Is this embedded in something bigger? Ooh. So when you put like quantum physics and general relativity and you try to come up with some bigger understanding, deeper understanding, string theorists have been all into this, you get a multiverse. We didn't pull that out of our ass. That came out of the equations. So how old is the multiverse? I don't know. It's definitely older than our universe, because it birthed our universe, and it births other universes, and it births, the way the equations drive it, an infinity of universes. What does it mean to be dead? Okay, it used to be, did you fog a mirror that was held up in front of you while you were laying there on your bed? All right, and if you didn't fog the mirror, you were judged to be dead. They would put you in a coffin, and in some parts, it is told, there's a string that they put into the coffin as they buried you, and they put it over a tree branch and connected to a bell. If you woke up, you would pull the string, and that's where you get the term dead ringer, okay? You would pull the string, and you come rescue me because you buried a living person, okay? So, Mars has a 24-hour day, approximately. It's tipped on its axis. It has polar ice caps, as we still do for now on Earth. It goes through seasons. We think there's a reservoir of water that was once there on the surface and now frozen as a permafrost. So If there's any planet that is terraformable, it would be Mars. By the way, the value of water in space is $10,000 a pound. If you lasso a comet and you say this is a lot of fresh water, I guess you could bring it back down to Earth, but that's expensive. You're better off selling it to NASA for $9,000 a pound, because it costs them $10,000 a pound to put water into orbit. Go into the center of a black hole, it's a singularity. All the theories say the matter occupies zero volume, thereby having infinite density. And that's kind of weird. What? No, you can't have infinite. No, that's a limit of Einstein's theory. The Newton's laws of motion and gravity worked. They worked not only for galloping horses, it worked for the moon in orbit around the Earth, and the Earth in orbit around the sun, and Jupiter's moons in orbit around Jupiter. But wait a minute, it doesn't work for Mercury. Mercury's orbit is not following Newton's laws. Is there something wrong with the data? Let's check it. Data's correct. Oh my gosh, what's happening? Einstein comes along and says, I have a new understanding of gravity and a new understanding of motion, and it accounts for this weirdness in Mercury's orbit.
What was the weirdness?
Its shape was not exactly what Newton's laws of gravity would give you. Its shape could only be accounted for when you throw in Einstein's theory of general relativity. Why? Because the sun's gravity is so monstrous and Mercury's orbiting close enough to it that it's being influenced by extra phenomenon going on in the universe that's the product of very high and significant gravity. Newton's laws don't stop working where they used to work. Apollo to the moon used only Newton's laws because Einstein didn't matter at those scales. The moon and Earth and rockets, we're not going fast enough for any of that to matter. But when you start going fast enough, you cannot use Newton's laws. You have to use a deeper understanding. If there's any planet that is terraformable, it would be Mars. The reason to do it is not to protect our species in case an asteroid comes and hits our Earth. That's the wrong, fine, it makes a headline, but think about it. If you have the resources to terraform Mars and ship 1 billion people there, you have the resources to deflect an asteroid from Earth, right. Okay? According to our known laws of physics, in the cooling universe, every matter and antimatter particle pair would have annihilated, made a photon. The photon would have cooled, and no more matter would have been made, and we would have had an entire universe of just light. But that is not the universe we occupy. One out of basically 1 million of these reactions, 1 out of 1 million, the photon did not make a matter-antimatter pair. It just made a matter particle.
Well, it was very...
You're trying to find out why.
Yeah.
And I'm just saying, it is that.
How do you stop a gigantic existential asteroid?
Go in and you deflect it.
How?
Oh, by any shove on it that's sideways.
Well, you're President of the United States.
No, well, yeah,
right?
okay.
There's a massive asteroid. It's going to crash into the world.
Yes. We have engineering plans for deflecting asteroids, and there are multiple ways to do it. You can have a gravitational tug where you can have a spacecraft that sits just ahead of it, and the two of them will want to drift towards one another, but you take the spacecraft and put little retro rockets, and if you get this early enough, 1 centimeter per second, tiniest amount will accumulate over time, and you just have to make it so that it overshoots Earth or undershoots Earth. In the universe, there was so much energy, every particle could be made. So watch what happens. You have a pocket of energy, it becomes mass. And the only way we know that can happen is if it becomes a particle and an antiparticle pair, matter and antimatter. So the opposite of an electron is a positron. It looks just like an electron, but among other things, it has the opposite charge of an electron, positron. Okay? Every particle has an antiparticle. In the early universe, the temperature was very hot. And above certain thresholds of temperature, what happens is matter no longer stays as matter. It can freely move back and forth between itself and energy. And we have the recipe for this. It comes from E equals mc squared. We all know that equation. It's the formal conversion recipe for matter and energy. And the c squared is the speed of light squared. It's a huge number. A little bit of mass times that huge number gives you a lot of energy. We don't experience in our lives E equals mc squared because the energy in which we're immersed is not high enough to enable matter to go back and forth between energy and itself. That's why it took so long to discover E equals mc squared and to come to terms and to come to understand it. If you take matter and antimatter and put them together, they annihilate and become pure energy, and the matter disappears entirely. You take the particles, matter, antimatter, identical particles except that they're matter, antimatter, bring them together, they disappear. And that matter becomes energy, and all that's left is energy. Right in that pocket, right there. Newton comes along, writes down equations of motion, equations of gravity, and kind of on a dare, he invents integral and differential calculus. Then he turned 26. This is why Isaac Newton is my man. The red spot on Jupiter, we call it Jupiter's red spot.
Okay.
Because that's how we roll.
That thing is
spots on the sun, sunspots. See? Forgive me for not remembering the name of this person who uttered this, but upon realizing with the power of a bow and arrow, you could kill another human being without actually looking them in the eyes. And the conclusion was, that's the end of bravery. And so I thought about this, whoa. Any tool where you can kill at a distance, that's cowardly on some level. And the progress of military conflict has been, how far away can you kill at a distance?
Well, now,
know what I'm talking
isn't
about.
it suspicious to you that a storm there could go on for 350 years without a break, and we never have storms that go on for 350 years without a break? We don't even have storms that go on for like 6 weeks without a break.
So, first of all, these storms are, when we have storms, it's in our atmosphere, so that's gas.
Yeah.
We rotate once a day, and so that rotation creates what we call a Coriolis force, which moving air that moves from one latitude to another, actually has its direction deflected because of this Coriolis force, and this is why storms rotate in one direction counterclockwise in the northern hemisphere and clockwise in the southern hemisphere. The Coriolis force is heightened if you spin faster, okay? And so what is Jupiter? It's 100 times bigger than Earth. More than that, 1,000 times bigger than Earth. It's like 10 times across, cube. So it's 1,000 times bigger than Earth. It's mostly gas. And it rotates once in about 10 hours. You want to talk about ferocious Coriolis forces? We have storms that last weeks here. Hurricanes that pick up and they get weeks on this little speck we call Earth that has this much atmosphere on it. Go to a planet that rotates twice as fast, is 10 times as wide, 1,000 times the volume, and is mostly gas, and you're complaining that it lasted 300 years?
You are really good.
NASA's budget today is 0.4% of the federal budget. If you take $1,
0.4%.
I will quantify it for you. Take a dollar bill, and imagine that's your tax dollar, and you can like cut it to whatever percent you want. So let's cut 0.4% off of the edge. That doesn't get you into the ink. You're still in the white
area.
border around it.
You wouldn't even notice. They take that dollar.
You could trim that off the dollar
and pay for anything.
I was channel surfing one day, waiting for a movie to come on at the top of the hour. I had 15 minutes. I hit a football game, and they just ended the game at a tie, and they just started overtime. I thought, that's about right. Let me just watch this. How bad could it be? After the necessary exchange of possession, it became sudden death overtime. And then one of the teams, Cincinnati Bengals, got within 50 yards, and they kicked the field goal. And the ball rotated up. It hit the left upright of the goalpost and went in. And I said, ooh, wait a minute. And I said, which stadium is this? What's the latitude? And I looked at the orientation of the stadium. I did a calculation, and then I tweeted. And I said, the overtime winning field goal by the Cincinnati Bengals was likely aided by a 1/3 of an inch deflection to the right imparted by Earth's rotation. People lost their mind. I was asked about the movie Guardians of the Galaxy, and they asked me, well, the ships that are going through space, they make noise, and clearly, does that upset you? Because in space, where there is no air, no one can hear you scream. But no one can hear you explode either, nor will you hear engines or anything. And so they said, does that upset you? And I said, I bought into the idea that this movie has a talking raccoon that shoots artillery from heavy weaponry off its shoulder. If I can accept that, I'm good with whatever else they deliver in the film. If you really want to levitate, if this is really important to you, I tried to calculate how many cans of beans this would require. Then you got to kind of hold it in.
Yeah. All right.
Then.
All right, we're back, y'all. Okay. Area code 810.
Yes, sir. I'm still in.
Give me your name again. Let me put by your number because I got my pad right here.
A-R-I-K. Eric.
A-R-I-K. Eric.
Yes. Yes, and that brother, he kept bringing up animal. It sounded very complicated, but it's very simple. And I know he does that a lot to rub a lot of stuff in a lot of people's face who thought that people of his color is stupid. But he was talking about the simplicity of being with nature and being able to talk to the animals, talk to the creatures. They're gonna tell you everything. They're gonna show you everything first. And they live by smell. They live by higher senses that we use them, but we could tap into them senses by studying, the netters or nature. So I love this kind of bill. The collage that you put together tonight tapped into many parts of my brain, and it made me think on deeper levels, and that's what it's all about, brother. You put the platform out there to make us really think, and it's simple too. It's not. I like how you say you're trying to simplify. You did. That's what brought my attention to this whole show. I'm still here to the entirety because the simplicity of complicated things, that sound complicated, but you can make them very applicable, And I appreciate that. I appreciate it so much, Brother Tarhaka. I've been with you for a long time. That Dr. Hindu Henderson show is a big one. That was, and some of the things he talked about, we seeing it today. It's here. It's on us now. So give thanks, man. Give thanks. Hey, and give thanks for your family, your ancestors, man, your mama, your daddy, your grandpa, and them. You carrying some of what they had with you, I can tell. So give thanks for that, man. Give thanks for everybody's roots and trees and leaves. Yeah.
We certainly appreciate that. You was talking about the animals and us being able to communicate with them. I don't know if you've ever read it or not. There's a book called Of Water and the Spirit by Malachi Patrice Somé. And in there, he ended up being a shaman, and his grandfather taught him all the spiritual ways and stuff. And one day, he said him and his grandfather was talking, and he said he was watching the chickens. And he said his grandfather told him, he said, now, your mother has a basket full of millet, and what's going to happen is the rooster is going to jump up and knock the basket out of her hand so all the rest of the chickens can eat. And he said no sooner than he said it, it happened. And he said it was the most amazing thing he ever seen. He said, now, if you want to talk to the chickens, and if you want to hear what they have to say to you, he said, when they poop, you go gather up their poop and you rub it all over your body, and you and the chickens will have a a conversation that you can hear them, they can hear you, you can talk to them, they can talk to you, and you can understand each other's language.
Man, come on.
And that's just a smidget, because I tell people, I say, you have no idea who you are and what you connected to, and I understand the attack against you as a people, because once you wake up to powers that you have, which is totally untouchable, you don't have to argue with nobody, you ain't got to kill nobody, you ain't got to do nothing. You just, the rest of the world is just step aside every time. When they see you, they just automatically bow. Because,
Man.
that's totally untouchable. But nevertheless, it's time for me to shut this thing down, man. And,
Hey, Elder, can you please give me the title to that book one more time that you just talked about, Of Water and Spirit?
Of Water and the Spirit. And the author is Malidoma
Okay.
Patrice Some, S-O-M-E.
Oh, right on. Yeah, right on, my brother, right on. This has been magical, man. Thank you so much again, all right?
All right, my brother, I got your name down here, and I'll give you a call because I need to know more about that bundle you told me where Beverly V is at. So I'll be giving you a call, and then we can get on that. But in the meantime, I'm going to have to shut this thing down. It's time for me to go, man, and we're running out of time and all of that.
Yeah, all right, then. All right, Elder. Have a great one.
You too. Take care of yourself. Okay,
Yeah.
ladies and gentlemen, it's time for us to shut down, and I hope you all got something out of this broadcast. I have been your host, Tarhaka Amana El Bay, and until next time, y'all have a good evening.
Truck drivers. Without them, our economy would stop. They're constantly racing against time, struggling against exhaustion, and being put under enormous pressure from their bosses, the big trucking companies. This can be a major reason for an accident. Discovering who's at fault can be difficult. We can help. Put our big truck experience to work for you. Call Farah and Farah, Jacksonville.
It can get lonely climbing Mount McKinley, so to entertain myself, I go to ChumbaCasino.com. At Chumba Casino, I can play hundreds of online casino-style games for free, like online slots, bingo, Slingo, and more. Plus, I get a daily login bonus. It's just too bad that up here, I don't have anyone to share my excitement with. Woohoo!
Live the Chumba life. Anytime, anywhere. Play for free now at ChumbaCasino.com. BGW Group. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions.